Hi there, this is Steve Spurrier. You can join University of Florida Hall of Famer Shane Matthews and also the two-time SEC Player of the Year every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about the Florida Gators, including news, analysis, opinions, and some of the biggest names in sports. You can find him on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Or you can watch him live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter.
Good morning. You're looking live at PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I want to thank the head ball coach, Stephen Horsberger, for our introduction today on the program. It's Friday, thank goodness. And we will have JC momentarily, and we'll have Zach Abolverdi from GatorsOnline.com, part of On 3. Second portion of the day, get his thoughts on what's going on with the mighty Gators. Not a whole lot going on. JC, good morning. You're on the Titan MR hotline.
God.
What are you wearing? An Alabama and what is your hat? The Boston Bruins? What is it?
This is a 2020 team, best ever. And
Pittsburgh Steelers. Do they play tonight or something? Is that why you're wearing that hat?
No, it's because it was the first thing I saw in the closet that I grabbed because I was running slow, because it rained, and because the Wi-Fi went down, and because the dog went crazy, and she's getting ready to go to Mississippi for a week, and we've just got chaos.
Are you having a party now?
No, I'm sitting out hitting out. Let me ask you a question, QB. There is not a cloud in the sky over the golf hole, and it's raining in my porch. That's great. So QB, look, man, it's been quite a week, and everybody's working real hard. Did anybody ask Kyle Whittingham? Because I hear all these interviews on the radio with all these coaches. Did anybody ask Kyle Whittingham why his backup quarterback was live in practice and allowed?
Yeah, they did. They did. He talked about it.
Answer?
I can't remember, quite honestly. I was on with Bill Riley, their play-by-play guy, yesterday on his program, and he talked about it a little bit, but I was distracted, wasn't listening. I did answer his questions, but he at this time he doesn't think Cam Rising is playing, but we shall see. I don't know what's going to happen there.
So our friends Pat and Jeff yesterday on the drive show that you're driving through town. It's 4:30 in the afternoon, and I'm listening to WRUF because I love to listen to Jeff and Pat. And
did you learn what music Pat had and what likes and where he went to dinner last night?
That's right. What Karen's doing. And
me and Karen just got back from the beach. Nobody cares, Pat.
I love that. So anyway, Pat's saying, and both of them think, and I don't know really if I took this out of context or if I was listening to it wrongly, or I just, what I heard was they thought the guy was absolutely going to start. And I don't know how that's going to be the case when he's barely taken any reps. So
yeah, I mean he's the type of player that doesn't need a lot of reps because he's played a lot of good football and he's a good quarterback. I just don't know, man, because I've said it many times on this show. They can script what he does at practice, but when you don't make any subtle movements when you're doing that. And when somebody comes clean and you have to break out of the pocket with a subtle, quick movement, is it in the back of your mind? I don't know. We'll see. Andy says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mellon, prayers for Tyree Cleveland. He was carted off the field with a neck injury last night. I did not know that. I did not watch. I didn't even know there was a game last night.
Neither did I. Browns were playing somebody, and that's all I know.
The Eagles. He plays for the Eagles, I think.
Okay, so that's correct. Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
I didn't even know Tyree Cleveland was playing for the Eagles. I knew he was with the Broncos. But
well, I've heard you say, preseason is not as necessary as most try to make it out to believe. But when I watched the Hard Knock shows, or when I hear some of these coaches, man, they love the preseason, trying to figure out what they have or trying to get these teams ready. So don't they need a couple weeks at least to get this show on the road?
No.
Come
on, the National Football League?
Yeah.
They know who's on their team. I mean, I told you there'll be 3 or 4 guys that have a chance to make the team. They know their team. I mean, yeah, you want to get the work. But put it this way: if it was that important, the starters would play every snap of every game.
No, I think it's more about just getting everybody in football shape.
Well, that's true, but think about it. If that was the case, wouldn't your first team offense play the entire game to try to get in shape?
Yeah, that's a good point because they usually don't.
Yeah, it's all it is. It's the preseason we talked about with Frank Frangio. That what people don't realize, the owners love the preseason because all the money they make goes in their pockets. They're not paying anybody's salaries right now.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay,
they don't pay salaries until week 1.
So they
on that Tuesday when a direct deposit goes into each person's account. Right now, they're getting $800 a player for the week.
Yeah.
So that's where they make all their money.
That's interesting.
Well, I shouldn't say all their money because not everybody sells out preseason games, but that's where they don't have to pay JC $25 million to be a starting running back. Speaking of that, let me find it here.
You want to pay me
where is it? Oh, Reggie on Facebook Live says, Shane, can you ask JC to explain the running back situation in the NFL and the pay?
We get to this. You have to create mismatches, Reggie. It's important. You want scheme variation and formation variation and schemes. You want speed and you have to have skill. Those are the 3 components. And the running back position, I wonder if Reggie was a running back. I bet you he was.
He sounds like a running back, doesn't he?
Yeah, he sounds very fast. And I don't know why I say that, but Reggie seems to be on this running back thing, and he wants me to help him out. I get it, Reg. Hey, this kid Barnes for Utah is the guy who's taken, I think, most of the snaps here because of the liver laceration that the kid in front of him had by getting hit in practice. And this kid Barnes, who will likely play a lot against Florida if Rising can't go, was the kid in 2022 that played for them against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl when Rising got hurt in that game. I mean, Rising ought to just stay the hell out of the Rose Bowl. I mean, that game, he gets hurt in that game. This kid, Bryson Barnes, though, played against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, was pressed into service late in the 4th quarter, and completed both of his passes for 23 yards, including a 15-yard touchdown pass to Dalton Kincaid with less than 2 minutes to play to tie the game at 45. So he has very little experience.
Is this the guy that got hurt, or this is the third guy?
This is the third guy. The guy that got hurt was Brandon Rose, and he was the kid with a liver laceration. And after getting hit, I don't know how you lacerate a liver, but regardless, that's what happened to him. And last year, Barnes played against Washington State. He threw 1 touchdown, ran 51 yards, and threw for 175 yards. And then he also replaced Rising in the most recent Rose Bowl in January, and he threw for 112 yards with 1 touchdown against a pretty salty Penn State defense. So Bryson Barnes has engineered a scoring drive.
Well, let me ask you this: why is Bryson Barnes
the 3 guy? I guess
that makes no sense. Are you sure you're not talking about the guy that has the lacerated liver?
No, that's Brandon Rose. I was looking up their. I was looking up their,
good research on your part, by the way. On this is on YouTube. A comment from Shane1178. He says Shane don't like any QBs extend plays with their legs. That's totally not true. He says I'm with JC. JC Gators will be better with Anthony Richardson this year with this team than they will with Mertz. Well, that's your opinion. I respect it, but I disagree. I think it has extending plays is different than a running quarterback. Yeah. Steve Young extended plays. Bryce Young extends plays. Aaron Rodgers extends plays. So that's not a true statement at all. Tommy says, did you guys hear about the new movie called Blindsided starring Michael Oher?
Man, what a terrible I hate that story. God, I just can't imagine why a family worth $100 million would try to screw over a kid they let in their house. Does any of that make sense? Now, I'm not saying they're saints and they're this, they're that, or they are who they were depicted in the movie. I don't know. We don't know what's real life and what's not. But gosh, doesn't this sound like an extortion scheme of some sort, and maybe somebody ran out of a little NFL money and needed some help.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, why couldn't he just call Leanne Tui and say, "Hey, Mama, times are tough up here." Who knows how their relationship really evolved after that Ole Miss run, where Hugh Freeze basically said, "Look, man, this is the saddest thing." Yeah, he was on the staff when Michael Orr played Hugh Freeze, and he was saying, when asked up in Auburn here just this week, he was saying he can't understand how this could have happened and why it happened, because he doesn't see malintent on anybody's behalf. Why that would ever be the case, unless somebody just literally changed as a person and needed something that wasn't offered and wasn't given. And all of a sudden now we have a problem. That doesn't make sense to me.
We got some Facebook Lives here. Dan says JC lacerated his liver with some Maker's Mark. Tony, I think Tony's trying to stir the pot here. Tony on Facebook Live says, "What does JC think about all the money we send to Ukraine?"
Hey, it's hey, man. Okay, yeah, I could go on for an hour, but I know that's not why Shane has me on here. But let me just put it to you like this: we need some help in this country.
You should be a guest on Ward Scott's show.
I would dominate that show. And yeah. Ward Scott and I are buds. He likes to talk to my very, very liberal brother and have him on the show, and they have a very friendly conversation. But I'm just different from the rest of my family, and it's not my fault. It's just the way it is. I just don't believe it.
All right, don't forget we're going to have Zach Abolverdi in the second portion of today's program. Ruzoger State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visit overinsurance.com. Give them a call at 352-240-1779. All right, let's get to a bunch of these texts on the Titan MR text line.
Yeah, it is. I am right. It is Brandon Rose who was hurt, and this guy Barnes.
Yeah, somebody said he's not even. He's a walk-on.
Well, he was 2 on the chart, and he's the one that got hurt. But this Barnes kid does have experience. This Barnes kid has thrown touchdowns, and he is not he's not a total rookie, if you will.
Yeah. This is from Matt in Lake City. He says it may have gotten lost in the text. Well, I don't get to read them all, Matt, because there's so many that come through. But he says, Shane, regarding JC's fixation Wednesday on the Gator QB's role in their success this year, the data is on your side. In 3 of Florida's losses last season, the offense scored 30-plus points. If we had an average defense, Florida would have had 2 to 3 more wins. D is the key to 8 wins this year. Yep. All right.
I don't know why people don't think I didn't disagree with you about the defense. I never said anything that was untrue about the defense. They were god awful. I mean, yeah, Vanderbilt ran the score up on those kids. So I'm not debating that, QB. I just think that if you don't get really good play out of that quarterback position, which you think we will, then I don't see 8 or 9 wins. But hey, let's hope it happens. I'm not trying to create a controversy by any means. I want to see Florida succeed. I want to see a good season, and I want to see happy people around here. And the last 2 years has just not been the Florida or the Gainesville during this time of year that I grew up with and that I got excited about living in. Because of the bad football. So let's hope it changes. But it's been bad for a long damn time. That's the problem I'm having. Is I want to see things happen probably quicker than many, but maybe not. Many, I'm willing to give Billy 3 to 6 years if he needs it, because I think that's what it takes a coach to get his team the way he wants it. Just look at Mike Norvell at Florida State. It's the same thing. Florida State is really, really doing better now than they were 3 years ago. Their recruiting is excellent. Florida, by the way, is number 3 right now in recruiting for 2024. Number 3. I mean, don't you see the progression that's going on here? So that's what I'm thinking about more than anything, is that you guys give Billy that chance, and he's going to turn it around here, just like Mike Norvell did. And I don't know why Miami's having so many trouble with turnover and coaching. But I can't imagine why Cristobal won't do the same thing down there. There's just so much talent in Florida. You've got to believe. And look at Gus Malzahn at UCF, QB. They're doing great with the recruiting down there. I mean, they've got the Big 12 Conference. We're going to have 4 really good football programs in this state, in my opinion.
Text on the Titan MR text line from up in the 321 area code says, Pat Dooley needs a movie and music show, not sports.
He loves music, no doubt about that. My goodness, he knows things that I've never even heard of.
Yeah. So let's see. We got here Greg in Fort Myers. He says, question for you and JC. What is the number? What is the number the Gators will need to beat Utah? I think 27 points takes the win. Yeah.
30.
I mean, it's
I
hard.
think 30.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, it just depends on how the flow of the game is going. So, JB says Griffiths were laughing at Florida's chances this year. Griffiths says we will games in a row and fire Billy.
Oh,
That's clueless. He's been on my show. I have no problems with him. He's good buddies with Doring, but I don't even know who we play in our last 6 games. But I can promise you, we're not going to lose 6 games in a row.
No. The schedule is
these people are just that. Well, again, it's their opinion, and they have a right to it.
I don't even know how serious that opinion is. I think he's just stirring you up now. I
could care less what he or Paul Feinbaum say, because let's be honest. Do you think any of them have ever?
No, he does not even look at. He doesn't
of
even
any
look,
kind. I mean,
well, he doesn't
even
in
like
really
middle school. So that's their opinion, and they have a right to it. But
okay, but see,
I don't know where they're coming with that.
How serious is that? How serious is that?
All right, JC, are you there? I feel like I'm talking to the wall because your internet's terrible.
I'm right here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Kimmy, those opinions, I don't consider them serious. I think it's more than anything just spouting off at the mouth to hear yourself talk. The schedule, without a doubt, is back end loaded for Florida. There's no doubt about it. But think about this: if they were to come out, and I'll try to be on the optimistic side here, and think about if they get this somehow win this game in Utah, which I mean, I don't think it's that far fetched. I mean,
nobody thought they were going to win last year,
right? And Utah, I mean, we're making Utah sound like they're the 88 Trojans or something. But let's say I didn't even know if they were good, but the point I'm making here. Let's say Florida jumps out and beats Utah, comes home, wins that home opener, takes Tennessee down like they always do, right? In Gainesville. And then beats this Charlotte team for some reason, goes up to the Kentucky Wildcats, and then wins that game for the first time in 4 years, which is not out of the realm of possibility. You got Vanderbilt, South Carolina. Hell, you could be 6-0 going to Georgia. I mean, is that, or 7-0 going to Georgia with a week off? Is that too far fetched? Is the question.
All right, here. I love when these people send me this stuff. This is 31 something on YouTube. He says AR will be the best first round QB from the draft, but Shane doesn't think the team would be better with him. I don't, and that's my opinion. You have your opinion. I've seen the kid play. Love the kid. I've coached against him.
Anthony, huh? We're still talking about Anthony.
I don't know why, but he's not your quarterback. So move on. That's the bottom line. We'd be better. We'd be better off if Rex Grossman was here, but he's not. Okay, he's not.
Well. But you did ask the question, would Florida be better than last year if Anthony came back? I think they would, because it's got another year under his belt. But
that's what they said every year he played. He got a better year under his belt. Same player I've seen for last 8 years.
Let's do this. Let's just
I hope he tears it up. I hope he tears it up. I'm pulling for him.
He was named a starter, whatever that means.
Well, they open up with the Jaguars. I don't like their chances. Jaguars. That's your team, remember? That's one of your teams.
They absolutely are. No, I've replaced the Rams with the Jaguars QB. Los Angeles is a cesspool. But anyway, 7-0. What if that happened? Imagine the conversation on Feinbaum, and imagine the conversation on Rick Neuheisel's shows. And everybody will be wondering, is Florida the TCU of 2023? That's what you'd be hearing. Because they'd start comparing Graham Mertz to that kid that played for TCU last year, and they'd start.
But here's the thing: Graham Mertz may not be playing. He may just be an average guy playing the way he's supposed to play. But they're better on defense. They're better at the wide receiver position. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen. But you just mentioned that first 6 games or whatever it was. That is not hard, in my opinion.
Well, that's what I mean. You got Tennessee at home, and the only road game is at Kentucky and at South Carolina. Is that considered at Texas and at Baylor, or at Texas and at LSU? No, it's not. It's Kentucky and it's South Carolina. I mean, gosh. But really, we all said that to win 8 games, they have to win at least three of those four that they should play well and win: Missouri, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt. They have to win three of those four or all of them, and they will get your 8 or 9 wins. There's no question about it.
He says, remember, scoring will be lower this year because the clock doesn't stop on first downs. Yeah, I hate that rule.
You do hate that rule, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, listen, coaches will adjust for it. It'll be okay. It will stop inside of 2 minutes. It's kind of like the NFL now. But I'm with you. I kind of like the moving the chain, stop the clock, run the clock. I don't know. It didn't bother me a bit. I don't know. But really, when you think about it, you're only saving 7 to 9 plays on average during the game. So it shouldn't affect things that much. I don't see it affecting things that much, QB. But what did you and our mutual friend at Spurrier's last night, what did he say about, I'm just curious what Tony thought about the Florida record this year when you told him that they were winning 8 to 9.
Tony's an offensive lineman that does not follow. I mean, he watches the games. That's it. He doesn't. He asked my opinion, and he goes, "I'm going with your opinion."
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
so wait a minute. What does that mean?
There's a million guys like that.
Well, we know another offensive lineman out there on some lake in Putnam County. What he follows the Gators, unlike your other offensive lineman.
I mean, he's able to watch practice. Tony doesn't live in town, and even if you did, it doesn't tell you anything. You got to play the damn game. I mean, practice is so overrated. I mean, seriously, JC, if I took you to practice today, would it change your thought process on anything that you saw?
No, because I'd be looking at
go play the games.
I'd be looking at a bunch of athletes with these big foamy hats, helmets rather, and running around, and they look just like they
and the thing is you practice against one another for so long, it's boring as hell, and defense wins a play, offense wins a play. I mean, you just go back and forth. So it is what it is.
I like what they do in the NFL when they play in the preseason against each other in practice and then go play the game. That's kind of neat. You get to hit somebody else during the preseason. But, in college, it's not that way. And you're right. Someday the offense has a good day, and someday it's the defense. And the coaches get all excited, and they have practice to me is like you say. It's just a necessary thing before we get to the real stuff. So.
Brent asked here on Facebook Live, Shane, do you see the energy and athleticism of these defensive tackles that were brought in? Man, Cam Jackson looks like the real deal. Yeah, like I said, the front seven's been poor the last 3 or 4 years. It looks a lot better. I'm not saying it's still SEC caliber, but definitely the tackles they brought in will help for sure. So, JC, did you watch any golf yesterday? I don't even know who's winning.
No. QB, I don't know what it is about me here recently, but I've really gotten into tennis.
Well, you got kicked off Twitter, so you quit watching sports.
No, I've really gotten into tennis, man. I'm into if anybody out there wants to know anything about what's going on in WTA or ATP, I even know who the Russian players are. I know who the Croatian players are. I know who the Serbian players are. I'm all about the tennis right now because for me, like I told you before, we should be getting ready for the PGA tournament right now in August. And the last major was at the British Open in July, and they're doing this thing called the Tour Championship, which, by the way, I'm very glad they did, lessen the field of players and go from 70 to 50 to 25 or whatever it is instead of 100 some odd players that they used to start this playoff season with. But the Tour Championship is interesting because the players care. But to me, it's not. It's just a glorified money grab. Really, that's all it is. It would be more fun if everybody had to put $10 million of their own money in the pot, and then they played for it. Boy,
that is the best thing you've ever said.
Ever in life said.
Yes.
It is.
How cool would that be?
Then we're seeing guys play.
If they had to have a buy-in, if it was a Calcutta type deal on the PGA Tour with their own money. Let's see who really plays their ass off then.
And who really cracks under pressure when their $10 million is at stake. And, some guys wouldn't do it, but then we'd find something else about those guys, wouldn't we? And that's what we have to do as normal, regular people. We put in our own money and play, right? And then when we go to the member guest tournaments that each of us
when you lose, you feel miserable. when you
Well, you
lose
do.
$400 on a Friday afternoon.
It matters, doesn't it? And when you go to these Calcuttas and all of a sudden your rich friend goes, all right, JC, give me $1,000 for this. We're betting on them. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And then I do it. But it's like, oh my God. If Kevin and somebody doesn't par this hole, I'm out. So it does matter. And I think that would really get some interest going. And then we'd see these dudes quit being prima donnas and play for some real stakes. But I digress.
On YouTube, this 31 dude says, your opinion on Mertz is formed by practice. No, it's formed by watching his fundamentals, his accuracy, and his anticipation throwing on air. Look, I don't know a whole lot. I don't know a whole lot in life. I know when a dude is fundamentally sound. I know when he's smart when it comes to football, when it comes to executing an offense, and I'll leave it at that.
And you also know what it's like to putt with about $100 on the line at the university. And
Tony said we should have this $10 million buy-in on the PGA Tour at West End. Unfortunately, it's weeds. Let's get to this day in sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life with Campus USA Credit Union. Oh, back to my man 31 here. He's got to be a young guy because he's into all this stuff of these. I bet he likes going to watching the Elite 11, all these guys that look good in shorts, or watching the combine about how far and how hard they throw it. Just telling you. In 1981.
Nothing good.
1981, running back Herschel Walker of the University of Georgia takes out a Lloyd's of London insurance policy. What do you think he took the policy out for, JC, in 1981?
$1 million.
Yeah, 1 million.
Yeah.
1 million.
Well, back then, brother, that was 10 million today. But there was a player, what was his name? Ed Chester at Florida.
Yeah. And he got paid when he tore up his knee and his ankle and whole leg.
I felt terrible for Ed Chester. But, another guy whose career could have been great that was cut short was a local guy by the name of Cornelius Ingram. And I think, from Hawthorne, I don't know if anybody remembers him.
Yeah, they do. He's coaching. I mean, he just had some knee injuries. But Marcus Lattimore is the guy that comes to mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus Lattimore was such a stud. When you think about Spurrier at South Carolina, and not many do anymore, but man, think about some of those players he had up there. I mean, Sidney Rice, Marcus Lattimore, Alshon Jeffrey, the big defensive lineman, Jade Clowney, and I could go on. Their quarterback, the best quarterback he ever had at South Carolina to me was Connor Shaw won. And
he's the winningest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, but he was also, he may have been winning. So he also had the best players around him. But I thought he was also the most clutch they ever had. But Blake Mitchell, one of the first quarterback he had, was pretty darn good too. And they could have beaten Florida had it not been for a blocked field goal down here when they got a false start and made them reline it, and they would have won the SEC. They would have won the SEC East then. So they were it's so funny how we talk about South Carolina today and how different we talk about them from when he was there, and how he made them a team that you were really not looking forward to going and playing, as he got it going. I mean, at first he was having a hard time getting them going, but then once he did, he got some players in there. South Carolina was no joke. They got to the SEC championship game one time, and unfortunately for them, ran into a guy named Cam Newton. But other than that, they were always in the thick of it in the East, and gave Georgia fits. They beat Georgia up and down the field. Mark Richt didn't beat him ever. It didn't matter what school he coached. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yep, for sure. All right, JC, we're gonna get out of here. What do you? Everybody wants to know what your big weekend plans are, JC.
I'm going to make an appearance at the University of Florida golf course and light the world on fire over there, and show the old fellas that they don't need to be messing around with a 58-year-old guy. Okay, just play.
You're going to be playing some 80-year-old dudes too now.
I love those dudes, man. I can only hope and dream to be in the shape they're in when I, God willing, get to be there.
The way they play golf at 81 is remarkable, and they play the legit tee boxes still too, so it's crazy.
We're looking forward to it. I just hope this weather holds up, but I think we're getting a break for the next 7 days. It's going to be nice. So let's.
Is it going to get cool, JC?
No, it's going. I hope it stays hot. I want it to be 98 degrees and no rain. That's what I thrive in that high 90s degree. Everybody else melts.
These guys.
I love it.
I wish you could read these. I can't read everybody's messages, but Brent says his weekend plans are writing letters to Twitter execs for account reinstatement.
They already refused my appeal. I don't care anymore. I think I got to look back and see what was it. They said there was a tweet I wrote about some guy.
But it was about politics. It wasn't about sports.
Yeah,
right?
it was a political issue, but it was also a human rights issue. And I had a problem with what I was reading, and it violated their rules or something. And, you got to be careful what you type. But I didn't type anything controversial. I didn't type anything vulgar. I didn't type anything violent. I don't really understand it. But you know what? They have new leadership now. And, when he bought the company, it did change a lot of what the rules were and so forth. And that's just the way it goes. But I can still read it. I can still go on there and read Brett Beard. I can still read you. I can still read, Bruce Feldman. I can still read Kirk Herbstreit, who says Alabama's going to win the national title this year. I can still read all these people. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go read what Zach Abolverdi has to say because he's coming on next.
I like Zach.
All right.
Okay,
that's JC. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We'll be joined by Zach on the Titan MR hotline.
We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official injury and accident law attorneys of the Florida Gators. Peaceland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Campus USA Credit Union.
QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Dave & Buster's, eat, drink, play, and watch. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogre State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wibby, Realtor Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteak, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Q Billiards and Sports Bar. If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Attention all Gator fans, Meldon Law is giving away a chance to experience the Florida-Georgia game like never before. 2-night stay at the Hilton on the River, dinner at Ruth Chris Steakhouse, 2 premium tickets to the game, and a football signed by Coach Billy Napier, and much more. Go to the Meldon Law Facebook page and look for the VIP experience for 2. Good luck and go Gators!
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Spurrier's Gridiron Grill and Celebration Point is the flagship restaurant of the Florida Gators, the hottest restaurant in Florida and the heart of Gator Nation. It's Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. Check us out at spurriers.com. We're going to head to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by senior writer on Gators Online, Zach Abolverdi, who's also a professor at the University of Florida. Good morning, Zach. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, Shane. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How many of your students bring you like presents to kiss up to the professor?
I haven't any presents brought to me yet. I think they've had a few ways where they've tried to get on my good side, but no presents yet.
No presents. All right, Zach. Let's jump into it. Gators. Obviously, I think they're scrimmaging today, but you're around these guys. You go to Billy's press conferences. I just get a different vibe when I go to practice. The feel I get, I just feel like it's a more confident football team. Your thoughts?
It's a more confident football team, and it's a more there's more togetherness there. And you hear that cliche every single offseason. We're close. We've really bonded. this and that. I think there's something to actually be said about it this year, because there was a little resistance to the last staff when they took over in year one. And I think it started with the strength program and a lot of those guys liking Nick Savage and taking some time to get used to Mark Hockey and his staff. And then the same thing with the football season. But now you get into this year, every guy that's here wants to be here. If he didn't want to be here, he would have left last year and hit the portal, which, over 20 guys did. So I think there's something to be said. I mean, 72% of this roster is 72% of the scholarship roster is Napier players. There's only 24 Mullen guys left on the team. So I think that there's a lot more buy-in from that standpoint. And I think that in turn gets a better football product on the field. And I also think that I think there's confidence there because of what they've added the last 2 years from the high school ranks and from the transfer portal. I said 72%. I feel like they've made the team and the roster much better with that 72%.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. We got a Facebook Live question here from you. Brought to you by Mel Law. Andy wants to know, Zach, what is the extent of Jack Miller's injury, and is Max Brown the number 2 now?
That's a good question. I think we'll find out where Miller stands and get some more clarity tomorrow. I know that he's dealing with an issue that has been lingering, and I don't know if it still stems from his injury last year. But it's obviously something that's keeping him out because he hasn't practiced at all this week. And we were told that the staff was just resting his arm, but if he doesn't come back, the fall camp ends today. So their next time that they're out there on the practice field would be for the, game week prep. And if he's not back for that, then they're going to have to figure out who their starter is. And I'm not 100% convinced that it will be Max Brown. And I don't mean that as a slight to him. I just think he's still a redshirt freshman that really hasn't played and seen a lot of action. Now, nor has the other guy that I'm about to mention, but he is an older quarterback, and he's been at 2 schools, and that's Micah Leon, the graduate transfer from UConn. Shane, I'm not completely convinced that he might not be the first guy that maybe gets a crack at it if something were to happen to Mertz, especially early in the season, just because he's so much more experienced from a veteran standpoint. So we'll see. I mean, I think that Max Brown would play, but I'm not necessarily sure. But it is kind of a unfortunate situation to be in if Jack can't go, because then you're really one play away from having a guy behind center that doesn't have a lot of experience, no matter which one of those guys it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. Obviously, Jack would be, if he was healthy, he'd be the number 2 guy. But he's been injury prone since he's been here. I don't know the extent of the injury either. But I don't know if something were to happen to Graham Mertz, I'm not sure they're going to put 17 in the game right away. That's just a gut feeling I get from watching some stuff. We had a bunch of questions on Facebook Live here regarding Kingsley Agwaquin's injury. What can you tell us?
Yeah, it's it appears to be something that's nothing that they're worried about. It's a minor injury. It was described as a lower body. I think it might be an ankle. But he's listed as day-to-day. They didn't seem, too worried about it when they let the media know yesterday. So obviously the hope there is that this is, something that he can just rest up and get ready for the opener. I think Jake Slaughter would do a good job if they had to call his number. I really do. As much as the now there'd be a drop off. Now, don't get me wrong, but I think that he would handle the job well. He's a local kid. But when the offensive line had struggles during the spring game, it wasn't him. He wasn't the guy that was having all the crazy snaps and stuff. He did a good job. They had some issues at guard, because of Mazuka being out. And then when Roger Kearney got in there, his snaps were all over the place, but Jake actually had a good game. At the end of the world, if Kingsley's not ready week 1, but this is not anything that's going to keep him out long term.
Yeah, I think he's going to be all right. We had another Facebook Live question for you. It was regarding Justice Boone, who was taking his spot. Didn't they move Tyreek Sapp to that outside edge?
They did. They did. I think it's going to be a by committee type approach because, I think Tyreek Sapp will start there, and he just makes the most sense. He's the oldest of the candidates that they could play there now with Boone gone, and he's played edge before. He spent the past 2 years bulking up to be a defensive tackle, so maybe he's not as fast as some of the other edge rushers that they have. So I think you'll see guys like, Jack Pyburn maybe come in there on obvious pass rushing downs, but I think Tyreek Sapp is going to be the guy that kind of takes over that spot, which is good for him because he was probably going to be a backup this season. He was going to play on the D-line rotation, but he goes from now being a backup to being a starter. And, that was an unfortunate injury for Boone, but they're fortunate that they got a guy on the roster that they can just plug in like that. Because otherwise, if they didn't have him, they'd be probably starting a freshman or a sophomore, which would not be where you want to be.
Yeah. Text on the Titanamar hotline from George up in Memphis, Tennessee. He says, Zach, please tell me this defense is going to be much better than last year's.
It's going to be better. I mean, much better. That might determine how well of a season Florida has. But they're going to be better. I believe that. I know people in the program believe that. I think it's a combination of the talent that they've added and also what Austin brings to the table. I mean, he's a young guy, but he's rubbed shoulders with literally the two best coaches in college football, and he's worked for Billy, so he knows the system. He knows that Tony defense that he's kind of taken over for. So it's a good situation to be in for a program that lost its defensive coordinator right before spring ball. That's usually not an ideal scenario, and I think it worked out about as well as it could for Florida. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do, man. I like the guy.
Yeah, I do too. I love his energy. His mannerisms, just watching him at practice. Now, I don't know how he's going to be on the sidelines in a real game, but his mannerisms remind me a lot of Kirby, of how Kirby acts during a game. Kind of gets after people a little bit. Zach, so let's go back to the offense. Obviously, I've stated on my program, I absolutely love the three true freshman wide receivers. I don't think we've seen that kind of talent here in quite some time. I think Ricky Pearsall looks like a totally different player. I like Caleb Douglas, how he's looking. Just your thoughts on the receiving core overall.
It's better. They've got more wiggle. They've got more speed. They've got more guys that can get open. And I think the receivers that they brought back have gotten better as well. Like you mentioned, Pearsall, Caleb Douglas, Marcus Burke, some of those guys have really developed and improved their game. And I tell you what, they better because those three freshmen that are coming in, I think they're all going to play. Right now, Andy Jean might be the best of the three, even though he was the lowest rated one coming out of high school. I think he's the most ready right now, even though they're all going to be in the rotation. I think, Aiden Mizell might be the guy that catches the least amount of balls of the three, but might have the most yards of the three, just because he's a deep threat. I think you can turn him loose on some go routes and get some big plays out of him. And then, Trey Wilson, he's, the one that didn't come in the spring, and then he was a little bit limited with a hamstring. But, man, once he gets settled in this offense, he might be the best weapon of all of them. So it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do bringing those guys in. And you and I both know, Shane, they needed more guys that had that type of ability at the receiver position because they got a bunch of receivers that are tall and lengthy, can go up and get the ball. But they needed some guys that can do damage in space.
Yep. We got different dudes that can do different things, and I like it. All right, a couple more questions here, a couple more texts on the Titanamar text line. Bob wants to know, what can you tell us about who do you think will be the starting tight end?
Yeah, it's really, I said this on our message board the other day at Gators Online. I mean, obviously you're going to have a starter, but there's really not going to be a tight end one in this offense. I think at times you're gonna see all three play. Maybe you see all three on the field at the same time. But between Zanders, Odom, and Boardingham, I think all three of those guys are going to be in regularly with the starters, probably going to have two on the field at the same time a lot of the time. So, I mean, we'll see. I think if Xanders is healthy, he's probably just, out of seniority, the guy that gets listed as the starter. You got Odom coming off of injury, so, he's going to be ready to go. But, man, to me, Boardingham is the one that's got a chance to break out. He's only he's only in his second year, but, you've seen him in practice, Shane. That guy's a mismatch. They've been using him. So, he'll probably be the tight end that fans get most excited about, even though he doesn't quote-unquote start. But they got three good ones that I think they'll be able to use well.
Yeah, he's the guy that has a chance to make the splash type plays at the tight end position, whereas the other guys are going to catch the ball in the flat, get you 8 yards, catch the ball over the middle. They're not going to wow you.
And block.
And block.
They're going to block,
exactly.
too.
Yeah, exactly. This is an interesting text on the Titan More text line from Frank in Melbourne. He says, Zach, you do a tremendous job covering the Gators. I would like your thoughts on the difference in covering Dan Mullen and Billy Napier.
Man. There's a difference. I've been fortunate to cover a lot of different coaches. Shane, my first year on the beat was Urban Meyer's last year, so I got to even cover him. I would say that the two guys that I've had that I've enjoyed covering the most have been Billy Napier and Will Muschamp. And I think there's some reasons for that. They're two very similar in some of the ways that they run their program and deal with the media. But I got to say, Billy's been the best. The relationship that I've built with him and his staff, and then the access that they've provided me personally, and then the media as a whole, has been the best that it's been since I've been on the beat, by far. And I liked Dan as a coach. I thought that he was obviously a great X's and O's guy, but he was just not someone that was going to have a relationship with the media or really deal much with the media. And Billy's just a different dude, man. It doesn't matter if you're a media member, if you're a janitor, or whatever you are. If you're somebody that's in his life and he's going to take time out of his day to have a conversation with you, he'll sit there and talk to you for 10 minutes. I've been at practice sometimes, Shane, or at camp, and he'll walk up to me and sit there and talk to me like he doesn't have a million things going on and he's busy, and just gives me the time of day. And it's a very unique, the way that he is. And now obviously, that's got to lead to success and wins on the field, but I think it's going to. And I'm definitely pulling for the guy because I don't want to see another staff change.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, last text here, and we'll get you out of here. Appreciate your time. It's from Gary in Miami. He says, we know Shane is high on Mertz. What do you think about Mertz, Zach?
Well, anybody that's been following Gators online knows where I stand. I work with Nick Del Torre, and he was down on Mertz for a while, and I was always kind of on the Mertz, Team Mertz. And I predicted them at 8-4 in the summer, Shane, and a lot of people kind of gave me some eyeballs when I put out that prediction. And then I went on Feinbaum, and Feinbaum gave me a little heat for putting them at 8 wins. But honestly, man, I feel like that's where they can be with Graham. You're obviously losing so much from an athletic standpoint, losing Anthony Richardson, but you gain so much in what Graham brings from a knowledge standpoint, from an experience standpoint, and just running the offense and making the plays, and honestly making some plays that Anthony didn't make last year. The easier plays. I think that he's going to be able to do that. He's much more confident in the system than he was in the spring when folks saw him in the spring game. That's not the version of Graham Mertz that they're going to watch this fall. Honestly, I think that, he's the type of quarterback that could have been the difference maybe in some games that they lost last year, like Vanderbilt, or Kentucky. So we'll see, man. I think that there's a reason why Billy brought this guy in. He evaluated 24 quarterbacks. And I've said this, and I think I said this to you at Spurrier's the other night. Everybody gives Billy and his staff credit for their evaluation so far and all the guys that they brought in, and they're some of the best players on the team. You know, for us to recognize those results and then not think that that's going to happen at the quarterback position is pretty naive. I think that Billy knows what he's doing, and he's going to show that at the quarterback position this year with Mertz.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Let everybody know how they can follow you on Twitter, sign up. Y'all got any specials going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, we just got a promo. If you guys aren't subscribed to Gators Online, you can get in the door for $1. Give us a try for a month. I would think most fans wouldn't want to walk away once they see some of the coverage we got from Nick and I, and then Keith and Corey on the recruiting front. We're nonstop, and you guys can follow me on Twitter, Zach Abolverdi, and definitely looking forward to this season, man.
No doubt. We appreciate it, Zach. You do a tremendous job covering the Gators. Appreciate your time this morning.
Absolutely, Shane. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, that's Zach Abolverdi. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. Silverback Concrete is a family-led team of heavy concrete specialists that build commercial structures with unrivaled quality. Silverback Concrete, you stand on it, we stand by it. I want to thank JC and Zach for taking the time. Zach's very busy. He does a really good job covering the Gators. Let's see. We got a couple of YouTubes I wanted to get to if I can find them here. This Shane 1178 says Billy should stop talking to Zach and worry about his boring offense. Billy's going to be out there. I don't know what you mean by that. There's nothing wrong with the offense will look different than it did last year. I'm just telling y'all that. So there. Andy says, in college, who did you score your receiving touchdown against? Yes, I caught one. I threw a couple, caught one, and ran one against Kentucky in 1990. Was it 90 or 91? Would have been 91. I want to say Willie Jackson threw it to me. Hell, I should know that, right? So yeah, it was only called one time in my career from about 35 yards out. It was a wide receiver screen throwback to the quarterback. And hell, Andy, you could have scored. There was nobody over there. Nobody at all. All right, so I hope everybody has a great weekend. There'll be a lot of NFL preseason to watch tonight and tomorrow. And we'll recap all that. And we're going to start getting into game mode. I'm going to get some people from Utah. We have to do the taping on that show because I can't have them come on at like 5 a.m. or what have you, whatever time it is out there. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday. Take care.